This episode of Comics for Fun and Profit is brought to you by our YouTube channel. Yes, we have a growing YouTube channel. We need likes and subscribes. Go to YouTube, check out Comics for Fun and Profit. Just search Comics for Fun and Profit. Or you can go to beacons.ai/comicsfunprofit and find all our links, including our YouTube, and get there that way. Got about 600 plus of our episodes in there so far. Check them out at your leisure. We've got some playlists segmented, so all of our guest host episodes are on a playlist. All of our interview episodes by Jason are on a playlist. We're going to continue to go back in time and continue to add to those for you completists out there that want to listen to all of Comics for Fun and Profit's history, because they're gone. They're gone from Apple Podcasts. They're gone from Stitchers of the world. They have dropped off. I have them on a hard drive somewhere, and we'll get them archived onto YouTube for posterity. So when Kyle and I pass off this mortal coil, Google and YouTube ain't going nowhere. Our stuff will always be around. Please, I implore you. Even if you don't like YouTube or you don't like listening to podcasts on YouTube, I get it. But you like us, or you wouldn't be listening to this. Go to YouTube, like, subscribe. So we don't have there very many. We just started it. So we just started adding episodes. Would love your support in any way you can. Thank you.
Aloha! It's Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing writer, artist, film producer, Colorado Book Award winner, Splatterpunk Award nominee, and a friend of the podcast, Josh Viola. Now, he is here to promote Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, The Dead Shall Rise graphic novel. It's going to be a Kickstarter campaign. Listeners, please check the launch page when this campaign goes live. Now, Josh, welcome back to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me. Aloha, Jason. Good to see you again.
Josh, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. Now, listeners, I'm just going to briefly go over some of Josh's past works. He has done a lot. He has written, a number of books. He's written like Denver Moon, The Mines of Mars, with Warren Hammond. He has also written a number of short stories. Some of them have appeared in some anthologies. The one anthology I do want to point out is Classic Monsters Unleashed from Monstrous Books. That's from a friend of the show, James Acklong. And Josh, I got to pick that book up. I've heard that
it's
good. Very good.
James did a great job putting that together.
Yeah. Okay. And he has written a number of comic books. One I want to point out is the Universal 6-part series that introduces the main characters in this universe. Josh has co-written this series with Angie Hopap. Am I pronouncing it? Hodap. And with artist Ben Matsuya. And he's also produced a number of movies, but one movie I do want to point out is Death Stalker. He co-produced this movie with Slash. Listeners, and yes, it is the Slash that we know. We don't have to say what group he belongs to. We just know who he is. Josh, is there anything else you want to add, or?
No, I appreciate all that. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff to say, so thank you.
No, thank you very much. Now, before we begin this interview, I want to give a big shout out to Dustin Holland of Superfan Promotions. Dustin, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And Dustin, thank you very much for all your patience as well, too, and help setting up this interview. Josh, do you want to add anything to that?
No, just I'll add to that a big thanks to the Superfan guys. They're awesome, David and Dustin.
They are. So now I've got some of my information from the website article from the Beat. It is titled Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, The Dead Shall Rise, is a prequel graphic novel to a legacy game. Now, this article is written by Christian Angeles, dated on July 2nd, 2024. If you guys get a chance, please check out that article. All right. Josh, where can listeners follow you on social media?
Well, I just launched a new company that's putting this out called BitBot Media, and on social media, on Twitter. Sorry, my son's. I don't know if you can hear him in the background. He's He's very loud. Apologies. But anyhow, BitBot Media, and on Twitter that is We Are BitBot, at We Are BitBot.
And then listeners, as Josh mentioned, his son was a little bit loud because you know why? He's excited to talk about. He's excited about for his dad to talk about Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. Now this came out. This started out as a video game, correct?
Yeah. It started out originally as Blood Omen. That was
Mhm.
so that's the first game that came out in the 90s, and then followed by kind of a spin-off called Soul Reaver, and that's when they it all is based around the character Kain. So it's the
Mhm.
Legacy of Kain series, and then they did Soul Reaver 2 and Legacy of Kain Defiance, which really kind of brought the two main characters from both games together. So there's 4 games
Mhm.
currently in the series, and it's one that I grew up with, one that I'm very passionate about.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, I'm gonna ask you, like, because I did a little bit of research, and listeners, I'm an old guy. I played old Atari games back in the 80s, and I and then unfortunately when I grew up and had to work, I couldn't play any like those those awesome video games. So I'm gonna ask you now, how popular was this series back in the late 90s?
Uh, it, it- I mean, it's by Crystal Dynamics, so this was their other big title next to Tomb Raider. So I mean, that kind of gives you
Oh yes. Hmm.
the landscape for who these people were and what they were putting out. As far as I was concerned, it's certainly not as big as Tomb Raider, but it's up there. That it has a very strong, dedicated fan base even to this day. Not having anything fresh or new in 2 decades.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah, all of my friends, we were all gamer nerds, and we all played the hell out of it and loved it. And yeah, it's got a passionate following for sure.
That's nice. Now, I'm going to ask you a dumb question, and well, let me preface this because some of us old you know nerds, when we grew up in the 70s, of course the Star Wars came out, we bought all the action figures, and to this day we still have it. Do you still have your game cartridge from this game?
Yeah, I have all 4 still. Um,
Oh,
oh
nice.
yeah, yeah, I have them. I've got Blood Omen on the original PlayStation. I've got Soul Reaver 1 on Dreamcast, Soul Reaver 2 on for PS2, and then Defiance for Xbox, I think is what I have it on. So yeah, working on this project, I jumped back into the games actually, so just to get really familiar with them. And those that aren't familiar, they're very, especially Soul Reaver
Hmm.
1 and 2, they're very, very, very complex and story heavy, and so there's a lot to unpack.
Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. Now, the other thing too, besides the video games, I know, um, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think there's like either a first issue or a one shot Legacy of Rain Soul Reaver that was in 1999, came out from Top Cow. Now that was written by Matt Hawkins and David Bowler. Art oh no, David Bowler was the artist and Matt Nelson was on the colorist. Do you know if there was any other like books or comic books that came out after that?
Yeah, the one shot that you're talking about basically was like a companion for the Soul Reaver game. So it was very short. I don't remember how many pages, but I want to say it was like 12-ish pages,
Oh,
maybe a
yeah,
little bit longer than that.
yeah.
And it just is a very quick breakdown of content that was featured in the game to get,
Hmm.
and stuff that wasn't in the game actually that got cut. So anyhow, that came out, and then when Legacy of Kain Defiance came out, which was the last game in the series, they did have like another one-shot comic that they did, and I can't recall off the top of my head
Oh
if
no,
that was
yeah.
Top Cow or who that was. And I want to say, because I have both of those comics, but I want to say that there might have been some other comic-esque story
Hmm.
thing that was maybe a part of a strategy guide, but I don't know for sure.
Hmm.
I remember hearing something like that, but I never saw it, so I could be
Oh,
total. So
that's so cool that you have the comics.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got them. They're bagged and boarded and in pretty good shape. So yeah.
Off the cuff question: did you ever get Matt Hawkins to sign the one that I mentioned from Top Cow that came out in 1999?
Oh no, that'd be cool though. But no.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't have any original signed memorabilia or anything from it. So got to change that here. So, but we're offering plenty of that for what we're doing. So FYI to the to the listeners.
that's good because you know why? It's a perfect segue to go into the campaign. Now, before we talk about this news story, may I ask how you and Angie decided to do a graphic novel about this video character, the character or the story? Like, was it your guys' love for the game? And like you mentioned, it's the 25th anniversary. What was it that made you guys decide, hey, let's do this?
It was really a lot of being in the right place at the right time kind of situation. I worked with Angie on the Unioverse game series last year, as you mentioned, and we worked directly with Brent Friedman. And Brent
Hmm.
has written a vast array. If you check out his IMDb, I mean, he's contributed to so much stuff. Halo, Call of Duty, Star Wars, and he's done stuff in film, TV, video
Hmm.
games, things of that nature. So we worked on Unioverse together. Angie and I were the co-writers for the comic series there, and Brent was the narrative lead. And Brent, through that process, found out how much of a Legacy of Kain fan I was. I talked about a
Yes.
lot. I've got the character on my tattoo sleeve, so he's on my arm, my forearm,
And his
and
and listeners, that's on his left forearm. So if you guys see him, you just, hey, where's your left forearm? Yep.
yeah, yeah. So Brent knew, I loved Legacy Kane Soul Reaver so much that I have Raziel tattooed on my arm. And yeah, we just kept in touch after Unioverse, and he mentioned me to some folks at Crystal Dynamics, the people that have the rights.
Yes.
And that was just like, hey, are you interested in talking about, because my other company, or my company that's putting this out, BitBot, does licensed IP. There's a lot of stuff we're not able to share yet, but
Hmm.
Brent knew about that, and he was like, I know you love Soul Reaver. Are you interested in working on that? And I was like, shut up,
Hmm.
leave me alone. You
Yes.
don't do this unless you're serious. Like I will do whatever I can to work on this series. And so we talked, and then yeah, that really spawned a multitude of things. Not the graphic novel is the big thing that we're doing, which is a prequel
Hmm.
to Soul Reaver, but the stuff that's been announced that we're doing is also, we have these really high-end latex masks of the characters for cosplayers and for display. And we have in the series, Soul Reaver. That's
Hmm.
that's the name of the series, but that's the sword. The Soul Reaver is the sword that plays a very prominent role in the story. So we have a 3 foot replica of that,
Wow. Hmm.
and we're releasing some other cool stuff that has not been announced yet. So Brent knew that I had the ability to not only do the graphic novel, but to do these other types of merch to go along.
Yes.
And Crystal Dynamics really liked what we showed,
Hmm.
and here we are. So
That's so cool. Now, before we start getting into the story of the graphic novel, for someone like me or a new gamer who loves comics but have never heard of this game, how would you describe it? To how would you guys describe like the game or even your guys' story to us? Like, if you're a fan of this and this, you would love this book.
yeah, it's I think this is kind of cheap in a way, but it's very much like Game of Thrones. If Game of Thrones had vampires, that's what it would
Yeah.
be.
Okay.
That's the easiest comparison for those that aren't familiar. But it's a series that's, nowadays with video games in particular, there's so much focus on multiplayer and
Yes.
that sort of stuff. This
Yeah.
was this was not that. This was very much a
Yeah.
story-driven single player. You're
Yeah.
gonna get deep, deep, deep into the story, and it's very complex, and that's what I loved about it. That's what I think the fans loved about it. But it's very gothic, Shakespearean dialogue. A lot of it is focused on destiny and fate betrayal. And there's
Mm-hmm.
two protagonists. There's Kain.
Mm-hmm.
He was once a nobleman turned into a vampire, and
Mm-hmm.
he's on this kind of quest for revenge and changing his destiny. And then
Mm-hmm.
Raziel is his former, who was in his human life a vampire hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Then centuries later, after he died, Kain resurrects him, turns him into a vampire, makes him his lieutenant, and
Mm-hmm.
then Soul Reaver picks up. Kain actually betrays him, and he's become a wraith vampire, and he's forgotten his past. And you play as Raziel,
Mm-hmm.
trying to uncover that mystery. So that's a very short, truncated version of the story, but it's super complex, very, very dramatic, very, very awesome. And on top of that, from like a visual standpoint for comic book people, what I think appeals to a lot of people is the character design. There's some really, truly outstanding character design that
Mm-hmm.
stood out then, and it still holds up today. So yeah.
That's cool. Okay. All right. I'm going to ask, okay, like you mentioned that this is a prequel story. So without spoiling it or anything, where does it take place or.
The thing about the Legacy of Kain series is that over the span of 4 games, there's time travel and time and paradoxes, and there's like kind of multiple timelines that take place, and this whole story spans thousands of years. It's
Mm-hmm.
not so Blood Omen is the first game, and then technically the second game, but the first in the Soul Reaver series is Soul Reaver.
Uh-huh.
This sort of takes place between those two, which has a great amount of distance of time between them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what it is exploring is Raziel, the character that fans know from the Soul Reaver series. We only see him briefly as a vampire, and then we play the Wraith version of him in the games, uncovering some of his past. And you
Uh-huh.
hear that he was a human vampire hunter and things, a
Mm-hmm.
Seraphan, Inquisitor essentially. But you never got to see it. So
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing is exploring that
Mm-hmm.
history that's only touched upon in the games, but we're showing it, and we're showing what led to Kane's betrayal. When Soul Reaver opens in the game, one of the best cinematics in all of video game history, in my opinion. The opening of that game shows Kain at his throne with all of his lieutenants around, and Raziel steps out from the shadows
Mm-hmm.
and reveals to Kain that he has had this evolution, this metamorphosis, and he has wings now. And he's the
Mm-hmm.
only vampire that's had wings. And Kain views that as a threat, and he tears the wings off and he throws him into this pit where he burns and suffers and turns into this wraith. So we are showing in our graphic novel what led to the manifestation of his wings. So that's a pretty important, plot point.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, that's so cool. Um, how much fun did you and Angie come up with this story? Did you guys like toss out ideas and
oh
you know?
yeah. It's been fun. We're still working on it. I can say that we've written just over half of the first draft.
Mm-hmm.
And we are there, it's a pretty extensive approval process because there's
Oh
so
no,
many
yes, yeah.
people involved, but it's been and we're working with some, I can't say who, but we're working with
No.
some major legends that I'm totally nerding out about. But um, it's been a lot of fun, but like I said, it's a really complex story. So it's
Mm-hmm.
been hard to make sure that like we want to make sure that we're not retconning things, that we're not
Mm, yes.
that we're doing justice to the story,
Mm-hmm.
in our minds at least, and in Crystal Dynamics minds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been stressful, but a good stress, because it's
Yes.
like for me, it's like wow, I'm writing canon for these characters that I grew up with. That's
Yes.
a
Mm-hmm.
crazy
Mm-hmm.
crazy thing, to think about.
That's the perfect segue because I know, you're working very closely with Crystal Dynamics. I know they must have gave you guys guidelines. No, you can't do this. No, we need to make sure this is followed. But did you guys come across any hidden gems about the games that the developers couldn't use because of time constraints in the video games, or it just didn't work, but they still kept it as like like as like a canon thing, but it's like, I hope we can, if we make more games, we can show it later or something.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff that was cut from the games that we're aware of that we sort of milled a little bit, but
Hmm.
you know, it all ties into what is probably pretty well understood by the fan community.
Oh, okay.
Um, but again, it's more like knowing that these quote unquote historical events happened
Yes.
in the lore, but they weren't explored. But so we're so it's true to that, but we get to take it in new directions to show them how it happened, and that's been the most fun. And Crystal Dynamics has been, really collaborative and good to work with. And the great thing is that they haven't just approved everything that we
Uh-huh.
wanted to do, right? But they haven't said no. They're like, oh, well, let's figure this out. How can we figure
Oh
this out?
yeah.
And if it
Yeah.
does organically work, then let's do it. And obviously we weren't able to do everything that we wanted to do, but it's been a really cool process to figure that out
Hmm.
because they're open-minded,
Yeah.
they're
No.
they're
That's
cool.
oh man, that's great. Okay. Now, um, I no spoilers, but are there going to be new characters that's going to be introduced in this graphic novel that was already, that was probably in the background already, or
Yeah, we've sort of alluded to that already with we haven't said who,
no?
but
Yeah.
yes, we have a new vampire character that's a prominent character. And then off the top of, I mean, we've created a number of new characters, but there's like three sort of like quote unquote major new characters and a
Hmm.
few other like minor characters sprinkled around, in there. But to some fans that we've seen have expressed concerns that like this is the new characters are going to take be the focal point, and they are important without a
Hmm.
doubt, especially one of them. But this is Raziel's story. This is Kain. It is a Legacy of
It's,
Kain story, and Kain plays a prominent role. This is
hmm.
very much about Raziel's past. So just to kind of like put those fears to rest, those
Hmm.
two are the big honcho, head honchos. But yeah, we do have new characters. They are important, and so far, what's been neat for me at least
Hmm.
is I'd say that 98% of the fan theories that I've seen out there about this project, they've got it wrong,
Okay. Hmm.
which is great for Angie and I as writers to say that
Hmm.
like we're not picking low hanging fruit. We're doing something that they're not expecting. So I'm excited by that.
Oh, that's gonna be good. Um, because I'm going to tell you, I'm definitely backing this book, you know,
Thank you. Thank
when
you.
the campaign launches because it sounds really cool. Um, and then when you just said like, Game of Thrones, okay, I have at least I have uh something to like, okay, I know what Game of Thrones is about. It's going to be complex. It's going to be complex. It's going to be a complex story. You're not going to be knowing who is allying with who's going to turn around, but I can't
Yeah, it's
wait.
that very, very medieval kind of gothic.
Yeah.
It takes place in the world of Nosgoth, which fans will know what that means. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's really the themes of all of this stuff is destiny and fate, and,
Yes. Yeah.
and that's really what we're trying to make sure that we're true to that, because that's important to the series.
Okay. Now, your artist on your book, it's Juan Samu. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. So how did you guys team up with him?
Yeah, Juan I've worked with in the past. Pretty much everyone that's on the everyone that's on the project, other than the people at Crystal Dynamics, I've worked with before. So Juan has, if you're not familiar with this stuff, he's great. He's done a lot of major IP work. I love his style. But he and I worked on a Shrapnel. James Acklone and I wrote a short story for a video game series called Shrapnel that Juan illustrated, and then Juan also did the Terror in the Corn little comic series that we're doing. It's a
Hmm.
Halloween kind of series of comics, little one shots that are all kind of connected in a way. But I've just really loved Juan's work, and I thought from my point of view, seeing the other art that was done for the Soul Reaver comics that came out in the past, I wanted to make sure that um, we had something that looked and felt different. And Juan's style is very, very different.
Okay.
And he really likes the character design and everything in the Soul Reaver series. So he was really excited to be a part of it. We really wanted to be a part of it. So
Oh, that's so cool. All right, let's start talking about. Hopefully, I'm getting this correct on the Kickstarter's reward tiers. So I know, of course, you guys are going to offer digital copies, of course, physical copies. Um, I'm just asking. I I mean, you can say no, but I'm just throwing this out there. But do you have one where if backer backs at a certain level, can they be drawn into the story or anything like that?
yeah, I can say I feel comfortable saying a little bit about that. Yeah, we will have an opportunity, a limited opportunity for fans to get drawn in as a character, and we will have a few different options for
Hmm.
the physical graphic novels on top of um, the other rewards that we've already announced, but we still have some pretty major announcements. There's a lot of stuff coming for this thing, like more than I think people realize. It's like more than I've ever honestly seen for a major Kickstarter project. But it's super cool because the fans of this series haven't had anything for 2 decades.
Yes.
No
Hmm.
merch, no nothing. Total dry
Hmm.
spell. Now it's just going to be this like kind of probably overwhelming. We're even offering an ultimate fan package. They're limited, but it'll basically include everything that we're offering because there's just so much. So
That's
yeah,
gonna be
pretty cool.
nice. This is an off the cuff question, Josh. How cool would it be if there's action figures? I'm not saying for you guys to make it, but you
Well,
know.
there have been action figures in the past. I actually have
Oh,
them.
okay.
I own them. And I do know, unrelated to us, I will say that we are not doing action figures, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if
Yeah.
Crystal Dynamics says anything else. But Dark Horse did tease at San Diego Comic-Con some Legacy of Kain statues at their booth. So they will have that.
Oh,
That's
nice.
unrelated to our campaign, but they did tease that just a few weeks ago. So.
Oh, that'd be so cool. And I mean that's so cool because I mean if listeners if they didn't hear that announcement from San Diego Comic-Con and if they're listening to this episode, oh, that'd be so cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty, they look pretty cool from what I saw. Yeah.
Hmm. All right. Um, Shout outs to your creative team. Do you want to give any shout outs to like your colorists? If you have
Yeah.
an editor, yeah.
We've got, I mean, and I apologize to anyone if I forget, but obviously Angie's been phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Atkinson, we haven't had any new press releases come out, but since he joined the team, we haven't had a new one. But Zach is doing our colors.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah Lambert is doing our letters.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Juan's killing it. And then we have Dave Raposa did one of the covers. Aaron
Yes.
Lovett's doing a cover.
Yeah.
Matthew Terrian's doing a cover. Um, and then we have some other really cool artists doing stuff for merch like Ninja Joe,
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, Johnny Bush, Sandra
Yes.
Rush, Preston Acevedo. There's uh, and I don't know if I'm missing anyone, and I
Oh,
apologize if I am, but it's a really cool team. Lots of passionate, creative, talented people involved. And then, on the team at Crystal Dynamics, again, I can't name names, but they've been great. And Daniel Kabuko, he was the original concept artist on the series, and he was the art director on Legacy of Kain Defiance. So he's working with us on uh,
nice.
concepts and honestly as sort of guidance. I'm personally running a lot of stuff by him for his feedback since he's
Yes.
so familiar with it. So that's been cool. And yeah, like Matt, Frank, Casey, those folks at Crystal Dynamics have been great.
Nice. Thank you very much for the shout outs. Thank you very much. All right. After this campaign is over, book is completed, everything is mailed out. Do you guys have any more stories for the Soul Reaver universe that you guys want to put out?
Well, that I would want to put out, I would love to put out more. I think that's ultimately going to come down to how successful this thing is.
Mm-hmm.
This is really, I think, just to show to see what audiences feel like, if they really want more of this series or not. I hope that they do, and if they do, and Crystal Dynamics will have me, I'd love to be a part of it. But I don't know what the
Okay.
plan is, but that's in their court. But fingers crossed. As a fan,
Yes,
I hope that this is like the thing that brings it back, and we see lots more of Legacy of Kain.
that'll be nice. That'll be really nice. Okay, you talked about your excitement of working on this project. What was the most, do you have one memorable, or what was one of the most fun thing? I know you're halfway through writing the story. What is the most fun or exciting thing that you love doing on this project so far?
Well, I mean, just as a fan, it's been really cool because when I first played these games, I was so intrigued by the lore, by the art,
Mm-hmm.
and it was one of those projects that it wasn't like watching. There's so much stuff that comes out now, so much content. I don't care
Yes.
what it is that there's certainly a lot of good stuff, but I haven't experienced something in a long time where it stuck with me so much that I needed to research and I needed to explore more.
Mm-hmm.
This game series did that for me. So the most fun part is taking what I was curious about before as a fan and expanding on that and actually giving answers to some of those questions. That's been fun for me because I'm not approaching it in a way where it's cheap. It's like, man, I want to know about this, and I have to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that we deliver on a level that's acceptable, more than acceptable. That's good,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's been cool. So I feel really good about it, and I like exploring what we're exploring. Plus, I've learned a lot more about the series. That's been neat
That's
too,
nice.
because there's so much stuff that I just wasn't aware of that's been revealed to me in this process. So that's been
Mm-hmm.
cool. Like, wow, I already thought this was an amazing
Mm-hmm.
group of characters, but it's that much better, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Josh, what I was going to mention was what's so cool about this game, because I think this game came out 25 years ago. I think what's so cool about fans is it builds up that nice anticipation. Yeah, because then it's like, holy cow, because then it's like, oh my God, what else are they, and you guys want to make sure you guys are doing it justice. Like you said, to do it justice. You
Right.
guys want to make sure you're doing it right. You know, you're working close with Crystal Dynamics to not to, to make sure that it's still within the story guidelines. And I think
Right.
that's so great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. You
Yeah.
know.
They gave us so much material. Not only have we done like more Zoom calls in my life, just with but the materials, we have like this guiding document that's, I want to say it's at least a couple hundred pages long, just so much stuff.
Mhm.
But it's been very helpful to have that. We've got
Yes.
graphs and stuff and
Mhm.
dioramas of the timelines. It's like
Wow.
really, really complex, but thank God we have it because it's been very, very helpful. But yeah, there's been a lot of pressure. I mean, I'll tell you that much. Like, man, I feel good about what we're doing. I'm
Yes.
not doubting that, but I'm seeing so many videos on YouTube and things on Reddit and in the fan groups where I'm like, I have to shut it off now because
Oh yeah. Mhm.
the pressure is crazy. But we have, between BackerKit and Kickstarter, we have almost 11,000 followers so far before launch.
Nice.
So I'm like kind of like, that's a lot of people, of eyeballs on this thing. So,
Yes.
but I think they're going to be happy when they see what we've been working on, because it's been like nonstop for the
Mhm.
last many months.
Yeah. But I think what's also really good too is that, like you said, it's almost like you've got this 200-page Bible that it's there. It was already made already.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, yeah, here's 5 pages of an outline. You're like, oh, okay, it's detailed.
Right. And it goes through many levels of approvals, which obviously like that ensures that everybody's getting their eyes on it and they're providing feedback. So yeah, it's everybody's taking it very, very seriously. So any fans that are concerned, because I've seen definitely some concern,
Oh yeah.
but those that are, I can tell you that like this is not like a quick cash grab. This has been a
Hmm.
massive undertaking by a lot of people to make
Hmm.
sure this is a solid project for them. So
That is so cool. That is nice. All right, Josh, off the cuff, I'm going to shift. So we have about 20 minutes left, and don't worry, I'm going to slowly wrap it up. But because you mentioned about one of the comic books that you and Juan had worked on, Terror in the Corn.
yeah.
So is that a one-shot anthology, or
So
is it?
it's so what it is, it is a sort of a one shot. So there's a Terror in the Corn that's a very popular haunted attraction in Colorado,
Okay.
and it's recognized nationally. It's one of the like more popular ones, and they have, um, I want to say last year, for the month of October, they had about 60,000, people foot traffic, so it's fairly popular here. But anyhow, they have like this really dynamic. Not only is it a haunt, and it's a really cool haunt because it's like on many, many acres, and they've got multiple corn mazes. Some for adults, some for kids. They've got
Uh-huh.
campfires. You can get your own campfire and hang out there. They've got massive barns and
Hmm.
petting zoos, and then they have the actual haunt, which takes like 45 minutes to get through. It is,
Hmm.
if you're a Halloween nerd like me, it is just the best time. I go every year, multiple times a year.
Hmm.
Long story short, they've created this really cool story for their haunt. Like it's not just like building a haunted house. Like they have like an actual story for the characters and all of this. So they asked me, along with Sean Eads, who's my co-writer, to take their characters and do these little one-shot comics for each season. So this season we're doing the Wells twins. So this comic people can get and we'll have it available elsewhere, but they can get it there at the haunt, and it dives into who those characters are. And then next year we'll focus on another character. And the plan is to do this for some time, and then additionally we are going to release video game this fall.
Oh, nice.
So if you can't experience the haunt in person, you
Hmm.
can play the video game. So yeah, that's and Juan did the artwork for this first issue, this Wells Twins issue. But yeah, so it's a short one shot just on them, but it's sort of connected because then next year we won't continue the Wells Twins story, but it's still in the same world and universe,
Yes.
focused on
Hmm.
that new character's backstory, basically.
Okay, so this issue has not come out yet. Then I'm trying to I'm just trying to
It'll
clarify.
correct. It'll be out next month. Yeah.
Would it be available on your website to buy? Because I'm like, oh my God, when you just mentioned that, I was like,
It'll
holy cow, I want to read this.
Yeah, it's available. It will be available on metalxentertainment.com. That's my other company, and it should also be available on the Terror in the Corn website, official website. Yeah, and we have some cool variant covers. So it's a fun story, and I'm really proud of it. It looks great, but man, the game too. The game is just amazing. So if you're into video games,
Hmm.
or just keep an eye out because it'll be out this fall on all consoles. So
That's gonna be nice. All right. Actually, I only have two more questions. So, what is your next store or convention appearance for the remainder of this year, later August and the rest of the year?
all I'm doing the rest of this year, and I haven't even started getting prep for it, which is scary. But that is Colorado Festival of Horror, COFO. So I will be there with the Terror in the Corn people. We do have a
Nice.
Soul Reaver panel planned, and then my other comic series with Stephen Graham Jones, who wrote Earth Divers, True Believers. It's a slasher
That's
story
right.
that takes place at COFO. which was really cool because we got official cameos, approval from Jamie Lee Curtis and R.L.
Yes.
Stine, and some other people. We will have the first and second issues there, and we're about to launch a Kickstarter for the third issue sometime soon. So,
Okay. Oh, that's so cool.
we'll be there at Kofo promoting all that stuff.
Oh, that's going to be nice. Any closing words to our listeners?
Well, if you made it this far, thank you. Appreciate it. And yeah, I hope you guys are curious about this stuff. Hopefully there's a few Soul Reaver fans out there, and hopefully those that aren't familiar with it might be interested. So check it out, and a big thanks to you as well, Jason, and giving us a platform. So
No, you know, Josh, mahalo. Thank you for your time. Thank you for giving me another opportunity to interview you. I wish you all the success for your Kickstarter campaign, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, The Dead Shall Rise graphic novel. I also want to thank Dustin of Superfan Promotion for setting up this interview. Dustin, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. Now, if you are a new comic book reader or a lifelong comic book reader who loves video games, please check out Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, The Dead Shall Rise campaign. Now, the launch page is already up and available. And Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, you already have 11,000 followers tracking when it goes live, right?
yeah, between BackerKit and Kickstarter, yeah.
That is amazing. That is incredible. Now, Josh, I'm being serious. Now, listeners, if you know a friend or a family member who loves comics and loves playing video games and have heard Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, and it's, wanting to know more, wanting to know more, wanting to get more like story or a comic book story or something like that, you know, please check out the Kickstarter campaign and think about giving this original graphic novel to them as a gift, either as like a birthday gift or a Christmas gift. I think it'd be a nice gift to give to someone. I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Mahalo, aloha, thank you, appreciate it.
As you know, our LCS is Cowabunga Comics, Lake Country, Wisconsin's best pop culture destination for new comics, back issues, gaming, retro video games, vinyl, and figures. Give them a call, 262-569-9999. Check them out online at cowabungacomics.com or follow them on Twitter at Incredicow. They are our LCS, and we utilize their deep discount mail order service to bring Oconomowoc, Wisconsin closer to us. They'll take care of you. Tell them Drew and Kyle sent you. Say hi to Eric and James from us. If you need an LCS, you can't go wrong with Cowabunga Comics.